What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hustle Decoded Entrepreneurship from the Ground Up. My name is Kelvin. I'm the founder and CEO of the Hustle Decoded. Look, usually what we do here is we talk about fundamental life skills that you're going to need in order to get to the next level. We talk about personal development. We talk about the entrepreneurship journey and some of the things that you can look forward to, or some of the things that is going to help you through your entrepreneurship journey. If you're interested in anything like that, please do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment below, let me know what you think. But again, I would be remiss if we did not talk about the United States election of 2020. Who is going to be the next president of the United States, at least for the next 4 years? Is it going to be the incumbent, President Trump, or is it going to be the senator out of Delaware, Mr. Joe Biden? Now, today's article, or today's video, I should say, is going to be about Texas. Guys, I want you to look at this map right now. So just to give you an overview, this is the current map as it stands. The light colors represent which way people are likely to vote. The dark red is heavily favored to be Republican. Light blue is likely to lean towards Democrat. Dark blue is absolutely Democrat. And if you are looking at places like Nebraska, or you're looking at some place like Maine, they have different congressional districts. So some of the electoral votes might go one way and the others will go another way. Maine is made up the exact same way. And all of these browns are toss-up states, and this is where it is at as it stands right now, according to all of the major media polls out there and things like that right now. But again, I wanted to talk about Texas today. Why? Because it's leaning Republican. It's not absolutely unequivocally Republican, and that's kind of an issue. I mean, we could talk about some of these other states as well. Utah, leaning, it's light. That's kind of odd. Montana is light red, leaning Republican. That's also kind of odd. But again, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, South Carolina, again, these things are kind of odd if you are the incumbent trying to maintain the presidency, or you're trying to maintain the White House. But Texas, for me, is the outlier. It should be the outlier for a lot of you as well. And we're going to get into that right now. Because why is it leaning rather than just being hardcore? Again, it's Texas. It's something you wouldn't even have thought of before. Now, I was looking at an article. This is an article out of calmatters.org. It specifically talks about kind of the exodus from California into places of Texas. They've gone to Texas. They've gone to this place in Arizona. I live here in Arizona. We've seen an exodus of people from California in the state as well. But one of the things that really stuck out to me in this article was the parts of Texas where Californians are most likely to move. The sprawling suburbs of Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth are now politically competitive in a way that was unfathomable 20 years ago. And I wanted to look into that a little bit deeper, because I'm like, okay, how is Texas made up? What's the makeup of Texas? What are the counties and all this other stuff? Again, this is all the data that you're not going to find at some of these mainstream media. You're not going to find it on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. You're not going to find this type of data this deep. And I wanted to just kind of give a different perspective on things that we should be looking for. And this is one of the things that really stuck out in my view. So before I get into it, I am going to be using a Washington Post article. Now, what I did was I went on to allsides.com, wanted to know which way is the Washington Post leaning. And come to find out that basically Washington Post leans left, okay? But the reason why I chose this article is you're going to find out here in a second. They actually have a really cool map. All right, and I don't want to hurt your eyes here, so but what I want, this is what I wanted to show you. You see how all the different colors, they all represent the different counties of Texas. Okay, and we're going to discuss this stuff right now. So I'm going to go back up to the top. Again, you're going to see all of the counties of Texas. What makes up Texas and what does the electorate show us? This is one of the ways that we can dive a little deeper to give us an idea of what's going to happen come Tuesday. All right. Now, like I said, this is Texas. Texas has always been deep red, deep red. Okay. And the California exodus is one of those things that is a contributing factor. California leans really heavy blue, right? Has for years. And when you have this exodus from California and these other, quote unquote liberal states going into these more conservative states like here in Arizona or out into Texas, what usually tends to come with them is their political leanings, right? We kind of, those of us who live in the Midwest or the Southwest, we kind of understand this stuff a little bit. But let's dive into the numbers just a little bit more, and I'll give a little bit of context in each, okay? So we're going to start with Houston. Now, Houston, it's known for its space program, and you know how the Democratic Party or what they like to break down on all the major uh, on all the major platforms. They like to break it down by who's college educated voters and the white vote and the black vote and the women vote and I know people on the Republican side really don't like that. They're just like, oh, we're all Republicans. It doesn't really matter. But in terms of data, it kind of does, right? So in this instance, this is the makeup of Houston in a nutshell. It has a higher share of people living in cities than average. It has more non-white residents than average, and it has more college-educated residents than average. So Houston is one of those areas that is probably going to tend to lean blue just based off of those things. And I haven't looked at the thing. But yeah, so Hillary Clinton back in 2016 led Houston, right? So I'll go back up just a little bit. This happens to be the 2016 total for Houston, right? Then we move out to West Texas. Now, West Texas is oil country. I know this because I have family out there. Texas, El Paso stands out to me. One of the things that we had seen over the course of the last couple of years, remember that Beto O'Rourke individual and how he was just he was like a rock star in Texas, man. He was all over TV. So just by looking at West Texas, El Paso, and some of the things that Beto was doing in the last couple of years, I'm trying to think as to whether or not they leaned more blue than red over the course of the last couple of years. But the statistics overall is they have a higher share of people living in cities than average. They have more non-whites, and they actually have fewer college-educated residents than average. And I just remember that Beto O'Rourke, that Beto craze that was going on just a couple of years ago, and his huge political rise and all that stuff. And in 2016, Hillary Clinton happened to edge out the president during that time as well. All right. So the next one, we're going to go to Hill Country. Okay. Hill Country is where Austin, Texas is. Now, everybody has seen Austin over the last few years, and Austin, Texas has exploded. We know Austin has colleges there. We know Austin is becoming a huge tech hub. Austin, Texas has a huge art renaissance that's taking place right now. So there's a lot of things that tend to lean, liberal, and a lot of that influence in Hill County, I'm pretty sure, is coming from the Austin area, even though you see, the size of it and stuff like that. So let's go down and look. Now, they're 2016. They're fairly even. But like I said, there's this huge exodus that's happening from all of these liberal places, whether it be New York or places on the East Coast and California on the West Coast, that is going more towards these Southwest places. And these are the places that they're moving to. They're moving to Austin. They're moving to Houston. They're moving to Dallas and Fort Worth. And again, they're making huge influence, especially if they re-registered to vote and having the huge turnout and contributing to the turnouts that we're having, especially this year during our economic situation that we're in. They're having a huge influence on what is taking place. And again, fairly even. In 2016, Hillary Clinton edged out Donald Trump only by about 16,000 some odd votes. Due to the exodus, I think that number is going to increase slightly. And these are some of the things that are going to affect what may or may not take place in the election. Okay, so the election really is about whether or not the current president can maintain his base and maintain the states that he has taken before. In 2016, obviously, this was deep red and he took it. Rio Grande Valley, again, same thing. Right along the border. A lot of you know how people think conservatively for the most part on the border. Build the wall and all that other stuff. You guys can go down the list. But from a data perspective, Rio Grande Valley has a high share of people living in the city. They have more non-white residents than average. They have fewer college-educated people than average, right? And how did they vote back in 2016? Okay, so Hillary Clinton took that by 100,000 some odd votes. So as you can see in the last few places that we've looked at in these metropolitan areas, and beyond, and one of the things that we're not thinking about either is in the Rio Grande County is San Antonio. Okay, that's another major city that has a lot of influence, right? So far we've seen Houston, we've seen Austin, now we're seeing San Antonio, and all three of those states are starting to make their influence leaning more towards the Democratic side, right? Now you have the Metroplex. Now, the Metroplex, that's Dallas Fort Worth, large city area, but it's still fairly conservative. Okay, as you guys can see, it's near North Texas, and we'll get into that, and it's near East Texas as well. We'll get into that as well, but it's still fairly conservative. But again, because of these exoduses, the Republican numbers, you can see signs of, I wouldn't say fracturing, but you can see signs of more influence going blue. And in 2016, the current president was able to maintain that area, the Metroplex. Okay, so you get into North Texas, and same thing, a little bit more conservative. Amarillo, Texas is up that way, a lot more conservative, a lot more rural in this area. And now you're gonna get into East Texas. Now, for people that don't really know what the Texas landscape is, it's very interesting. So once you start getting into Eastern Texas, you start getting into more of the real, what do you call it? Just environment wise, it's wetter. It's swampy. You start getting that Louisiana feel, almost that Alabama, Mississippi feel, and that stuff. You start feeling that, and it's a lot more. It's traditionally conservative in those areas. Is the point I'm trying to get at? Because you start touching those southern states. It's almost like a traditionally southern state. You get that regional change, right? And based on that information, and just based on just how they vote historically, 2016, again, Donald Trump took that by a long shot, but again, it happens to be due to reading. You can also say the same thing for the Metroplex, Dallas and Fort Worth, because it's so close to Eastern Texas. You start getting into more of the traditional Southern voting base. Okay, so that's why I chose this That's why I chose this particular map. It does a great uh, visual illustration on what's going on in Texas and what is in these different areas. So based on these exoduses that are taking place in these different places, a lot of people moving to Austin, a lot of people moving to Dallas and Fort Worth, a lot of people moving to Houston from these quote unquote liberal or areas that tend to vote deeper blue. I should say that is the reason why Texas is gone from being a deep red state to being heavily influenced, and now it's likely to be red instead of it being the hardcore red that we've seen uh, in recent election periods. Now, I know that was a little bit long, but I do believe that the explanation was definitely necessary, especially when it comes to the state of Texas, so people can get a better understanding of what it is that they are looking at. Texas is going to be an interesting indicator of what happens in the next election. Can the current president maintain office, or is Joe Biden going to win the office? We don't know, but these are some of the things that are going to play into coming through election day and election week. Guys, if this is information that is helpful to you, again, we usually talk about entrepreneurship. We always talk about personal development and the things that you're going to go through on an entrepreneurship journey. But again, this is also part of that. You need to be able to research data, market share. The numbers do tell us stuff. I know the polls were a little bit misleading back in 2016, then that's why I'm showing you guys different perspectives as to what numbers you should be looking at. That will give you give you an idea, or more of an idea, of who may be the next president of the United States, or if President Trump is going to maintain the office for another 4 years. Mainstream media is not going to talk about this stuff. Maybe they will, but I don't know. But if you want more information like this, please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, comment below, guys. Participate in the process. All of my American people in all 50 states, please participate in the democratic process that we have. If you are in any other country, please participate in your democratic process as well. If you guys are able to vote when your time comes, it is very important that you do so. Thank you, guys. This is Hustle Decoded Entrepreneurship from the Ground Up. And with that, I'm out.